let's see. Let's start at the tweet. By the way, base score 9.9. That's a real W. Unauthenticated remote code execution versus all GNU Linux systems plus others disclosed 3 weeks ago. Full disclosure happening in less than 2 weeks, as agreed with the devs. Still no CVE assigned. There should be at least 3, possibly 4, ideally 6. Still no working fix. Canonical, Red Hat, and others have confirmed the severity, a 9.9. Check screenshot. Devs are still arguing about whether or not some of the issues have a security impact. I spent the last 3 weeks of my sabbatical working full-time on this research, reporting, coordination, and so on, with the sole purpose of helping, and pretty much only got patronized because the devs just can't accept that their code is crap. Responsible disclosure, no more. Oh, interesting.
So this whole situation, aside from the security implications, has caused a lot of drama. The two major points being this Simone guy, while he's doing good research, has been a little hot and heavy with the maintainers of cups-D. We'll show that here in a second in one of the GitHub issues. But also, obviously this tweet is kind of what set the internet on fire this week, because he's saying like, hey, there's a 9.9 coming, watch out, here we go. And then when it eventually gets disclosed later in this video, you'll see it's not a 9.9, right? So people are kind of pissed at him for the situation. Now, there's a good reason for this. We'll get into that.
Can I back you up? So who makes so before we say anything, who makes it a 9.9? Like, who decides on the value?
Yeah, there are different organizations that have the authority to kind of like decide what the CVSS value is. And so he reached out in this case to a security, engineer or security analyst at Red Hat. So he said, hey, here's the bug, here's what it impacts. This is after he did the CERN disclosure, right, to CERN Vince. And then so they sent him back this picture, the picture you're looking at. You can click on that and kind of zoom on it. And if you look at it, it says network attack vector, low complexity, no user interaction, no a scope change, low confidentiality. So like it's a serious bug. And so he kind of took this number that they gave him and ran with it, right? Security researchers are very excited about finding a bug, right? I'm going to go talk about it on socials, and he did. And then that's kind of got the internet hyped up for his disclosure, which is in the article we'll talk about later.
Okay, but I mean, this is pretty wild because network means that it's pretty much opened up to anything on the network. Low complexity means you're not like doing some crazy memory timing attack that requires a lot of sophistication. No privileges required, no user interaction required. That means you can just run a script and take over every single thing on the network.
Yep, zero click, like hands off, just fire and forget, and you get a shell kind of thing.
Yeah. What about scope? What does this one mean?
Yeah, scope change means your privileges on that system change, right? So if you are not a root user, now you become a root user, kind of thing. That's a scope change. And then confidentiality is there's no secrets required to get into it. Integrity is you can impact the integrity of the system because you become root, Jesus. And then availability is you don't affect the availability.
Oh, when you said become root Jesus, did you mean become root comma Jesus or become literally root Jesus?
No, because I said come root instead of become root, and I realized I misspoke. So I was correcting myself.
I was like, I don't know about this root Jesus thing. Is this like a whole new level that we're onto? The God pseudo?
Super root. Yeah, exactly.
Super user.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is new to me.
Come root. Okay, good. Now we were root. Now we're come root. Very good.
Okay,
I apologize.
Great. Thank you for starting a new meme within all of this. Okay, and availability. What is availability?
I forget what that one actually means.
Okay, because availability
I'm pretty
low.
sure it just means that like you don't DOS the system via this bug. Let me pull it up. Actually.
Oh, okay. So you don't do some sort of attack. It's at.
Sorry. Hold on.
Yeah. Because that's kind of interesting. Because what does availability mean in this case? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Helping us because I've never really read these reports, so you're just kind of giving me a quick.
Sorry, hold on. This metric measures impact of the availability of the impacted component resulting from a successfully exploited vulnerability. Oh, okay. So basically, if you were to exploit this vulnerability, what does it mean for the availability of the system, right? Does it lower the availability, right? Do you crash the server?
Okay, so low
by
means
doing this?
Bad, right?
Low means you have low impact on the availability, therefore making it more vulnerable, right? Or a better exploit or a worse exploit.
Oh, I see what you're saying. And that is because since there's no like obvious or like visual change to the system's performance, you don't realize that attacker has gained hold. So a low availability actually is like a really bad thing.
Yeah, right. And let's say, for example, you had a memory corruption bug where after you did your evil bidding, it would crash the process, right? That would have a higher impact on availability, which I guess it really depends how you interpret it, because like if it's a critical like OT, like a gas pump thing and it crashes, that's a bad thing. But if your router crashes, you're going to notice that, right? So it just kind of, it depends how you interpret it. But basically, it just says that this exploit does not impact the availability of the system when you're using it.
Okay. And so depending on the type of exploit, this can actually be a real small or big thing, right? Obviously, if you're attempting to crash routers and it doesn't really crash, it crashes 1 in every 100,000. It's not nearly as big of a deal as something that you gain pseudo root, or you gain a pseudo shell to this, or a su shell. How do you call it? A root shell? Root shell? Was that
root shell? Yeah.
People call root shells. I just only execute sudo. Okay, I'm a pseudo script kitty. All right,
pseudo guy. Yeah,
I'm just a pseudo guy. Okay, I don't even sue. I just sudo, and I don't even call it sudo. But so you gain the ability without anyone notice, which means you can really run amok, grab data, do whatever you need to do.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I'm putting these metrics into the calculator to see if we can affect anything and change it. But yeah, okay, and it gave me.
And so theoretically, like you could gain access to systems and then say steal environment variables, in which have great information, or steal some.
Yeah, if
some
you exploit this,
level of
you get a shell as root. So you literally like own the system. If you're unless you're in a container or something, but like generally speaking, you win. You are on the system at the best level, aside from like being inside the kernel code, right? Which you can do via root. So.
Yeah, so you're there. You're there. All right. I just wanted to make sure we really understand that. I mean, that sounds pretty 9.9-y to me. So I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, given no other information other than just like it's on the network, it takes very little complexity. It doesn't require any privileges. It doesn't require any user interaction. It does change your scope, and the availability is low. Like no one can really detect it. That feels fairly high.
No, exactly, and so. This will come up later in the video, but based on this information, based on what Red Hat gave him, you are correct. I agree with you.
Okay. So, once again, where's Oracle dunking on Red Hat?
Yeah, I know, right? They need, yeah, that'll come up later. But Red Hat is kind of a little dirty in this whole situation, but we'll get there.
All right, so. This is obviously a very long article, but it does look like there's a lot of comments down at the very end, so probably not as long as it looks, and a lot of images.
Yeah, it reads quick. You can skip the majority of the bottom area unless you want to go into kind of like the politics of vulnerability disclosure. But
I do want to go into the politics. I think that is really. I think that's more interesting than probably the exploit. Is the fact that we do really have a very vulnerable system for exposing vulnerabilities in systems.
Yeah, so on this article, obviously the summary starts it, and then the bug itself, like the total chain, is finished up in the remote command execution piece on the right, the table of contents. And then the bottom parts are him like talking about what you just mentioned, the politics. So you can kind of slice and dice however you want.
I actually I'm very, very excited about the whole thing, just because I've always been so curious, because I realize so much of the vulnerabilities we talk about are rarely technical. They're just like so often you see these just social manipulations to be able to get, various pieces of data. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of technical ones, but it just seems like the social ones are just so much more available, because it's so easy to get a human to screw up or to implant something, right? Like there's the one where, what was it, Polykill. They took a tired open source author, pressured him with a bunch of bugs, filed like CVEs against him, then bought it out, then white knighted him with a separate company, and then uploaded malicious stuff. And it's just like, that's such low. There's nothing technical about that.
Yeah, 100%. Layer 8 is the most vulnerable layer, unfortunately, and a lot of the trust in the system is put into layer 8, right? The human being. So when layer 8 cracks, a lot of the foundation starts to crumble. I mean, we see that all the time. Luckily, this bug is actually more just a technical bug. There wasn't any human manipulation going on in this one, which is good. But you are right that things like whatever that was called, polyfill, and then also RCE, right? Some of the biggest bugs we've seen in a while were all just like, oops, the human was tired, and so they took advantage of them.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy. All right. Yeah. Hello, friends. This is the first of two, probably three, or possibly three, if and when I have time to finish the Windows research write-ups. We will start with targeting GNU Linux systems with an RCE. As someone who's directly involved in the CUPS project said, From a generic security point of view, a whole Linux system, as it is nowadays, is just an endless and hopeless mess of security holes waiting to be exploited. Dang. Isn't that all operating systems, though?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's just code in general, man. I think the state of the world is like we all live on operating systems that are written in memory unsafe languages. And in the open source community, you have on the one hand, it's open source, it's widely audited in theory, but on the other hand, it's like anybody and anybody can and will contribute to it. So how much love is each contribution getting, right?
Yeah.
And so in this case, we'll see that the cups daemon, which the joke is kind of like, oh, no one cares about printing. Like, why does this matter? And like, that's kind of the problem, is that people kind of forgot that printers exist. And as a result, this code base went forgotten, and thus the bugs that he's about to find.
Also, there's this whole idea where if somebody is like, struggling and they need help from another human, if there's just one other person, the chance of help is like always 100%. Mm-hmm. When there's like two people, it's still 100%. But then as that number goes up, the chance of the person getting help goes down.
Interesting. Why is that?
So if someone's like choking and there's like 15 people,
like
people are less
bystander effect.
Yeah, bystander. Like there gets too many people, so it's like everyone's like, this is secure because there's so many people.
Yeah, it's like, oh, surely someone is handling this, and then you look deeper and you're like, oh, nobody is handling this.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. All right, well, they're not wrong. While this is not the first time I try to more or less responsibly report a vulnerability, it is definitely the weirdest and most frustrating time, as some of you might have noticed from my socials. And it is also the last time. More on this later. But first, here's the summary. So here's all the stuff. Let's see, 4 separate filings, right? So this is, well, I assume he'll go into more details about these because these are all... looks like printing stuff.
Yeah, so if you want to talk about the summary, basically this lays out all of the necessary components that have bugs to exploit the chain. You can either talk about it here, or you can go into like the story mode, right? The next part.
We'll just keep going and just let them kind of explain it. But we can see that there's cups browse, libs cups filter, lib ppd, and cups filters. Mm-hmm. And so I assume those are the 4 libraries that are each have some sort of vulnerability or all associated vulnerabilities. Let's see, plus a couple other bugs that will be mentioned and that are arguably security issues, but have been pretty much ignored during the conversation with the developers and the CERT. They are still there, along with several other bugs that are more or less exploitable. Impact: a remote, unauthenticated attacker can silently replace existing printers or install new ones. IPP URLs with the malicious ones, resulting in arbitrary command execution on a computer when a print job is started from that computer. If you would have just stopped right here, I would have been very happy. Right. Because if someone wants to come onto my system and help me install a new printer, like, dude, bro, go for it. Like, I'm happy. Thank you very much for installing a printer for me. I never want to do that.
It's like, oh wait, my HP OfficeJet 8650 actually works. Oh, cool, let's go. And you go to actually print your taxes and not get audited by the IRS. Yeah, dude, it'd be great if printers worked.
I know. I actually just installed a new printer for my mom, and it required like an account. HP is actually the worst company I've ever seen in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. The amount of like upsells and subscription ads they try to get to be signed up for just a printer was It's not a Christian Minecraft server anymore.
No one prints anything anymore, so they're like begging for a way to be profitable, and it's just
Yeah. Ugh. Anyways, okay. So it looks like so. It requires a print job to be started, but I assume since they already have root access, they can just start a print job?
Well, no. So you need, that impact is what gets you the root access.
So they have to start a print job on the malicious printer.
Right.
So someone needs to see a printer and then be like, I want to print on that thing, whatever that one is.
Exactly. So this is where the 9.9 started to fall apart, and where everyone's kind of crapping on Simone because it isn't zero-click, as that impact paragraph tells you. You need to do this malicious activity to create a printer, and then when you print to it, you get a root shell, right? But you don't just get one for free. So this is where Red Hat's evaluation of the bug starts to crumble, and it's still a big vulnerability, right? It is not a nothing burger, but it definitely is not a 9.9. We'll go into it.
All right, here we go. WAN public internet. A remote attacker sends an UDP and UD. I never remember the whole and then a capital when you say the word. I think it's supposed to be inverted, right? Consonants actually get and vowels get . sends a UDP. Yeah, I think I'm right on that one.
Yeah.
A UDP
UDP.
packet to port 631. No authentication whatsoever. LAN. A local attacker can spoof zeroconf, MDNS, DNS-SD advertisements. We'll talk more about this in the next write-up, and achieve the same code path leading to an RCE. Quoting one of the first comments from the guy who literally wrote the book about cups. Anyways, let's see. While trying to explain to me this why this is not bad, I'm just pointing out that the public internet attack is limited to servers that are directly connected to the internet.
Yeah. So basically, what
Okay,
he's
that's
saying
not a
is
good
that,
quote.
Yeah. So what he was trying to point out was that like there are hundreds of thousands of print servers that are listening on 631 on the internet, right? And so the blowback from that was basically people were saying, well, yeah, if they have their internet connected to their print server, like they're vulnerable to this. And so I think what happened was he was trying to overstate how many people are exposed on the internet right now to this bug, and that kind of got him in trouble because like that's already a vulnerability in and of itself. But it masks the fact that if anyone is on your network and can still touch UDP port 631, you are still vulnerable to this, right? So like, it is a bad thing. It just may not be as widely pervasive as he's making it out to be.
Yeah, but there's still like the whole daisy chain effect where if they can get in, then they have another attack vector where they can potentially gain root somewhere else. And I assume that, like, I mean, I just think about a school, right?
Right.
A school has Linux. They actually have Linux machines that you can print from. I did it in 2005 and 2006 and 2007, all the way through 2010 while I was in school, printing from Linux. I know it does happen. And so I'm pretty sure Montana State University, they figured it out. Yeah. They figured it out. Scott, I believe, was the IT guy, and he was very smart. But it's just like this does. I mean, there are plenty of places where they have the internets hooked up to printers, and so it's like this can definitely still have. There's still plenty of this. But yes, I do agree. Now that I'm understanding it, it's not. Maybe it is a little bit smaller. Maybe
it's not as big as he's making it out to be, but it's still big, right? It's still an issue.
Yeah, if you have it, it's like if you have this, it is a 9.9. But if you don't, then it's just not. Like for me, it's just like not a big Linux vulnerability. All right, cups, and specifically cups browsed are packages for most Unix system. Most GNU distributions, some BSDs, Google Chromium, Chrome OS, maybe. Weird to put the word maybe in there. Oracle, Solaris, possibly more. The thing is packaged for anything. In some cases, it's enabled by default. In others, it's not. Go figure. Full disclosure, I've been scanning the entire public internet IPv4 ranges several times a day for weeks, sending the UDP packet and logging whatever connected back. And I've gotten back connections from hundreds of thousands of devices, with peaks of 200 to 300K concurrent devices. This file contains a list of unique Linux systems affected. Note that everything that is not Linux has been filtered out. That is why I was getting increasingly alarmed during the last few weeks. Remediation. Right. Disable the cups browsed. Okay. You probably don't need it. Yep. You probably don't have your audio working, let alone printing. Update your cups package on your system. In case your system can't be updated and for some reason you rely on this service, block all traffic to UDP port 631 and possibly all DNS SD traffic. Good luck if you use zeroconf.
Yeah.
You look like you're about to say something.
No, I mean, all he's saying is that, like, if you don't need to print, don't print. Like, turn those crap off. And also zeroconf. The issue with zeroconf is that, like, it's another way of telling a computer that it has a printer, which is, once you're able to arbitrarily control printer information, you are open to the rest of the chain that we'll talk about here in a second. So basically, it's right now, if you use a printer in Linux land, there's an issue. All
right, entirely personal recommendation. Take it or leave it. I've seen and attacked enough of these code bases to remove any cup service, binary, and library from any of my systems, and never again use Unix system to print. I'm also removing every zeroconf, Avi, Bonjour listener. You might consider doing the same. Okay, so he's saying the whole thing is not good.
I think that's because of the response he got from the maintainers of the code base and also the quality of the code in the code base. He looked at the two and he's like, okay, obviously I can't trust this system. So, his recommendation is to rid yourself of it entirely.
Okay. One lazy day a few weeks ago, I was configuring Ubuntu on a new laptop. GPD Pocket 3, amazing little hacking machine, by the way. And for reasons that are irrelevant to this post, I wanted to check which services were listening on UDP ports. So I typed netstat and new in the terminal, and after checking the output, I noticed something interesting. This one. All right. Hey, look, there's UDP, port 631. Let's see, the 000 part is especially unusual. It means that whatever process is listening on port 631, it is listening on and responding to any network interface, LAN, WAN, VPN, whatever you have. I also vaguely recall that CUPS, the common Unix printing system, uses TCP port 631, but this is UDP. I investigated with ls of-I, this thing right here. That just gets the gets the process number based on port. That confirmed CUPS on 631 TCP plus this other process, CUPS browsed, likely related to CUPS, using UDP port instead. Oh, well, look at that. Okay.
There you go.
Well, the more you know, huh? And PS aux grep CUPS brow ultimately confirmed that this process runs as root. Hey, look at that. It's running as root. How nice is that?
Not great. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. After some Googling, I found that CUPS browsed is indeed part of the CUPS system and is responsible for discovering new printers and automatically adding them to the system. Very interesting. I had no idea Linux just added anything found on the network before the user could even accept or be notified. The more you know. At this point, I was extremely intrigued and curious, so I started digging into the source code of this service. While it's pretty messy on one hand, it is also self-contained and relatively easy to understand. So I quickly searched for bind API usage and confirmed that this thing is indeed listening on in-adder any 631 UDP.
Yep. So this is cool because I like that he was just curious and he's like, I'm going to go read the code because I don't necessarily trust how this works, right? To me, this is like the hacker mentality. Like that doesn't seem right. This smells weird to me. Let me go investigate. And as a result, he found, as you saw, 4 0 days. So this is just like peak hacker mentality, in my opinion.
Also, he didn't really indict the code here. He said it's pretty messy on one hand. It's also pretty self-contained. You know, I rarely think code is beautiful. I just want to throw it out there that most of it's messy, but self-contained is really what I'm shooting for. All right, so doing a little classic Berkeley going on right here. So we get all this. We get the sock adder, in adder, get some mem set, do all the family, all the good stuff. And then failed to bind right here. Okay. Yep. Cool. This code is using global variables like there's no tomorrow. That's fine. Come on, baby. It's C. So searching for browse a socket revealed that the process browse data function is reading a packet from it, performing some checks, and then some parsing. All right. So you're going to receive from, get a little bit of that goodness from that browse socket.
Yep. Standard server stuff. Nothing crazy going on here, right? Just like, open a socket, get a socket, read from the socket, boom. Nothing too bad.
And GOT is is that the length? I always forget. It's
a number of bytes you received.
Okay, so GOT, he puts a little new line in there so you can just kind of use some string. I assume some string reading processing going on there and be able to strip things. HTTP adder string does all that. If not allowed, then sorry, this is disallowed. True. Weird to say if not allowed, it's disallowed. True. Strange, but whatever. I can't judge too hard. Okay, and then do a little scanf. Okay. All right. Essentially, this service expects a UDP packet with the format hex number, text data. Yeah, you can see right there. Okay, cool. And if the allowed function returns true from the specific source IP, more things happen later. If not allowed, no way that returns true, right? I'm so happy that we had the same experience. You just caught it.
Yeah. Exactly. You're like, that smells weird.
It is a little bit weird to be like, how does that return true? Why would you want to return true if it's not allowed?
Right.
That's so beautiful. Well, it turns out that while you could configure who can and who can't connect by editing the edit cups browse conf configuration file, the default configuration file on pretty much any system, the entire commented out and simply allows anyone. Great. Okay, that's unfortunate. Later in the code, some printer, you would assume someone setting up printing on any sort of Unix machine must be pretty elite level Unixing, and so perhaps you could just assume that they can set the proper permissions.
Yeah, you would think somebody would have noticed this a long time ago, and it just goes to show how little anyone cares about printing on Unix. So.
Oh, yeah. Feels bad. All right, later in the code, some pointer operations are performed to parse the packet. If all checks pass, 2 text fields parsed from the packet are passed to the found cups printer function. We'll return to this. We'll return to this function in a moment, but for now, let's focus on the parsing. All right. Stack buffer overflows and race conditions. Let's go. Keep in mind that while cups package itself is covered in OSS fuzz, barely to be honest, cups browse is not. There seems to be no fuzzing coverage for this component. And I don't know about you, but to me, this parsing routine looks fishy and definitely something worth fuzzing. So whenever you're looking at stuff in here, what's the thing you look for when it comes to parsing? If I was about to do some parsing, what are some red flags that I should see planted right away?
The use of staircar, where you're looking for a character in a string, and then you're using that index to like instantiate more for loops, right? So it's like we have a string, we're going to look for a character in that string, and then we're going to iterate over that string using numbers that derived from that string, right? It's like the minute you start doing manual string operations with like nested for loops and stuff, it gets really messy really quick. And so like this looks like a custom extract data from the string function that it smells fishy to begin with, right? And you can see there's a for loop there, a for loop down there, and it just doesn't look, and like the lack of comments too. Also, like there's no real explanation as to why they're doing what they're doing. So
come on, it's extracting the location field.
Yeah, obviously.
I will say that when I see for loops without squirrely braces, for me that's the bigger abomination than any other thing in the universe.
Yeah, it's like you make one modification to the piece of code and like you forget about the curly braces, and now suddenly your if statements are passing without you realizing it, like crap like that. Not good.
Okay, so it just does a bunch of processing and then goes and tries to check for other fields as well. Okay, so it's walking forward. It finds this thing. So what is vulnerable? Why is that vulnerable to be able to say to look for the index of a quote? Why is that vulnerable? Like what makes
that's
that
not
bad?
Vulnerable on its own, right? But it's a code smell or a code pattern when you're looking at code that a manufacturer that somebody has written, and they're doing string parsing with a lot of interesting like subconditions, and just statistically that kind of processing does not do well, right? Like there are so many edge cases that you can miss that if you're not fuzzing, and as he mentioned before, they don't, you're going to miss something, and you're going to be able to find bugs relatively quickly.
Okay, and this would be like a classic thing you could fuzz fairly easy. I assume that there's plenty of string fuzzers effectively just available to produce various levels of strings and stuff.
We'll scroll down.
I'm scrolling down. Okay,
check it out. Oh, there he is.
Well, it's here. It's like I can guess where the article's going constantly.
Pre-read.
Pre-read clearly. So I quickly put together a fuzzing target around process browse data. Started my good old friend AFL, and wait, you won't believe what happens next.
Yeah. So what he did is he took that snippet of code and he wrote what's called a harness, where like obviously that piece of code is inside of cups browse D, right? Like you can't just fuzz all of cups browse D. He extracted that piece of code and wrote a harness that allows American Fuzzy Lop or AFL to input fuzz data into it. He compiled it with AFL GCC, which instruments the entire program so that it knows what branches it does and does not take. And he fuzzed it for a fuzzing session of 10 minutes, as you see up there at the top, and he found 5 crashes.
Dang. I mean, first off, this just goes to show how valuable it is to try to do fuzzing, right? Like this is just yet another thing. And for those that, I mean, if you haven't seen any of the YouTube videos, how it was basically described to me, by the way, I did auto-generate that with an LLM, don't hate me. How it was best described to me is that you really are, you just pretend like you're in a maze. And then there's all these different possible, paths through the maze. And some of the exits contain crashes, and some of the exits are successful exits. So therefore, you want to be able to walk this maze randomly. And so that means there's no you can't just have, I assume there's just not one fuzzing library that works on every single program because you don't know what the maze is. You kind of have to handcraft some of these unless if they're strings. I assume there's like a whole string utility just to be like, here you go, so here's random memory.
This whole conversation is like cutting edge security research. And there's actually a DARPA program, I think 10 years ago at this point, it's crazy that it was that long ago, called CGC, where like they tasked like 10 universities, like write me a program that we can go into and put a program in there, and it will automatically via fuzzing find all the bugs, right? And they did a good job, but the issue is this edge case called specific input, right? So let's say, for example, it reads all the data into a buffer, and it will only go to the vulnerable function if the first 4 characters are dead beef, right? A random input fuzzer will never catch that. So you need to figure out another thing called a SAT solver, a satisfiability solver, to handle that edge case and turn that problem into a math problem. So that whole thing is cutting edge security research. But what AFL does is effectively, randomly generates input until it can see in the instrumentation that it's taken a new branch, like you showed in your maze, right? Basically, we found a new maze path to take.
Yeah.
And then use that to continue to mutate the inputs until you find all the paths. You'll never find all the paths. You'll never do 100% code coverage, but you can do a pretty good job with it as well, for sure.
And you can most certainly do, like, I mean, you can technically do 100% code coverage, but that doesn't mean you do 100% good code coverage, right? Not all code coverage is created equal. It's very, very easy to get 100% code coverage and have a very glaring bug. Right.
Yeah, all code coverage means is that you've, at least in my definition, is that you've hit all the code blocks, right? Like you've gotten to a place where all the code blocks run, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you've exercised all the functionality of the program, which is two separate security issues.
Yes. Like a very simple one for those that don't know is you could have a very simple for loop that it uses a number that's passed into the function, and I starts at 0 and goes up to, like it goes up to n. You know, is less than n, I++. You know, there's versions of this that exist everywhere. And you could imagine that the array that it's checking through is not as long as n, and it doesn't do a proper check. You can easily get 100% code coverage on this by passing in the correct things and not exploding. The moment you exceed this bounds, then it explodes. But you can have 100% coverage without actually finding
like
any sort of bug.
All a for loop's going to be is 3 blocks. It's the initializer state, the compare state, and the action state. And like when you do this with any arbitrary n, you'll hit all 3 of those blocks. So 100% code coverage, done. But it doesn't mean you've actually hit all the potential n values, right? And that's where it gets tough.
Yeah. And so, by the way, I crashed my program again. This is me writing my own fuzzer. Nice. Just kind of a little fun thing. I tried to read and tried to understand what a fuzzer actually does. And all I do is I use normal distributions to connect clients to and randomly select out removing connections or adding new connections to servers. And just like add, remove in just a normal distribution fashion. Just to be like, all right, that's all we're going to do is just keep on adding and removing connections until something crashes. And
that's realistic too, because that's probably how you'll.
Yeah, that's like how games kind of work. People just stay around for a while and then eventually they leave. And so it's like, I was able to crash my program just by doing that.
How long did that fuzz session run for?
Oh, not very long at all.
It's even better.
Yeah. Whoopsie daisies. I crashed my program and I don't know why yet. And so we'll figure it out. But there you go. It's like I really love this idea of fuzzing, and I think fuzzing is like a really fun way to find things. By the way, people are saying that the author is Evil Sockets is in the chat. If he is, hey, hi.
Oh, no way. What's up, dude?
Hey, hi. Welcome.
I mispronounced your name like 10 times in my video. I'm very sorry. I tried my best. Okay.
Let's see. There are 5 different fuzzing inputs that trigger this. All right. Let's see. So these must be, let's see, HP returning unknown, processor bracket unknown, and then something happened here, and you get some sort of stack buffer overflow on an address. This must be like
he compiled the program with AFL-GCC, but also he used ASAN, which is another component of like it's a code testing framework. And basically it just detects like if you have a buffer and you're right outside of the buffer, the program will panic, right? And it'll show you where it panicked. And so here it's him fuzzing, and this is the input that causes the crashing state, and it shows you kind of the stack trace. But yeah, it's when you process that data with that malicious HTTP string, it crashes this way. And again, the point that he's making is that like this had obviously never been fuzzed because he found this stuff in like 5 minutes of fuzzing. Yeah,
if you can just pull out some code, literally run for 10 minutes and 37 seconds and find 5 separate crashes. It doesn't sound like it's been tested that hard.
Yeah.
All right, I believe it's being due to pointer being dereferenced before the exit condition is verified in both loops. I also found out later that there's a race condition and possibly a DOS in the lock acquired here. Both these issues have been reported and thoroughly documented to the devs and CERT, but nobody seemed to give a damn. I can tell you that there are other more easily exploitable code paths going on, not just in the discovery mechanism, also reported and ignored. To this day, they have not been acknowledged or patched. Happy hunting.
Yeah, I mean, so the point is like, if that is just one string parsing algorithm in their code base and he fuzzed it for 5 minutes and found 5 crashes, like what else is going on in that code base? And I guess the point that he's making is that he reported them and they didn't really want to hear it. So good luck,
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang, that stinks. However, I'm a bit lazy, and most importantly, I'm a noob when it comes to binary exploitation. Hell, I can barely tell whether a buffer overflow or a race condition are exploitable or not. Hardening mechanisms are getting more and more complex to bypass, and to be honest, I had no intention of spending months on this stuff. I hate printers. Like everybody does. This is perfectly fine. So the moment I decided to move on to what seemed to be a lower hanging fruit. All right. Back to Found Cups printer. By looking at Found Cups printer, we can see that one of the 2 text fields parsed from the packet. Okay, so we get some stuff coming in, a bunch of pointers, and we're going to be doing a bunch of little pointer arithmetics on stuff.
Yep.
All right. After some further validation and parsing, this URL and other data are then passed as arguments to the examine discover printer record function, which ultimately executes create remote printer entry. The create remote printer entry function will call the cf get printer attributes from libcups filters. All right. There's a lot of stuff going on here. We have a go-to.
Basically, you give the cups.d browser that URI, and then the server turns that into a printer. That is all. Like, here's an address. Okay, I'm going to go treat that as a printer now. Okay. To understand what this means, we'll need to briefly mention that IPP protocol is, but for now, the key points are a packet containing any URL in the form of 03 HTTP attacker IP, port, printer, whatever, gets to UDP port 631. This triggers a sequence of events that will result in cups browse connecting to that URL, a drive-by kind of thing. Oh, interesting. So if you just, long as you just give it the two effectively the hex numbers it's looking for, then I don't know what those numbers represent, but if 03 always works for some reason. I tested this locally last night.
Just 03 is the number?
Yeah, 03, any random address, it'll call out to that and be like, "Hey, what are you doing? How's it going over here?"
That's pretty neat. So I tell myself there's no freaking way that I could send this packet to a public IP running cups. Thank you, Shodan.io. That computer will connect back to the server I specified. No way. I hacked some Python together, fired up a VPS, and tried anyway. Holy shell.
Holy shell.
Holy shell. Not only it connected back immediately, but it also reported the exact kernel version and architecture and the user agent header. Oh, nice. Hey, that's really nice of it.
Yeah, thanks for that little information disclosure. Very good. Thank you.
Very nice. We'll see later how this protocol also reports and the requesting username on the target for some requests. Also, this accept that to me matches pretty well with CWE 200. Has been reported and just scoffed off as part of the mechanism. All right, let's not waste time on arguing whether or not this is a problem. Let's get to the juicy stuff. Juicing. We know that this thing talks HTTP and posts and some semi-binary payload. What the hell is that? Also, I think it's just kind of wild that it really did just go on the internet, do a quick connection, and it's just like, hey, yo, I'll connect to you.
It's like, oh, hey, by the way, this is my kernel version. Like, why did you tell me that? I didn't need to know that. Jesus.
Yeah. I can't imagine a printer needs to know that because printers don't work on any version. So why would you even need to tell it what version you are?
Right. It's like, I don't have cyan. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
sorry, dog. I'm out of cyan. I can't print that black paper. This is clearly CIA backdoor. Like, this has to be a CIA backdoor.
Caught IRL.
Dude, I know. It really is. It's just like, oh, yeah, totally. This is definitely normal for printers needing to know everything about your system.
Dude, it gets worse. Like, trust. It keeps going. It's crazy.
The Internet Printing Protocol, in short IPP, is a specialized communication protocol for communicating between client devices, computers, mobile phones, tablets, etc., the printers or print servers. It allows clients to submit one or more print jobs to the network attached printer or print server and perform tasks such as querying the status of the printer, obtaining the status of print jobs, or selling or canceling, I missed the can over here, canceling individual print jobs. All right, that seems reasonable. Essentially, the system now behaves or believes that we are a printer, and it is sending us, encapsulated in HTTP. Oh, that's nice that it's HTTP. A get printer attributes. Hopefully it's HTTP 3, right? Am I right? Request in order to fetch printer attributes such as a model, vendor, and several others. It makes sense. The system discovered a new printer, and somehow it has to know what it is. Well, look at me. I'm your printer now. Man, I can't believe how fast this has changed. I went back to writing some code, and by using IPP server Python package, I was now able to respond properly with attributes I controlled to the service request. My fake printer was immediately added to the local printers with no notification whatsoever to the user.
Yep.
In your butt. Oh, damn.
In your butt, baby. Yep.
Dude, and
Printer
ready.
way up there.
Ready. It's in your butt and ready. That's not where
All
you
the way
want to
up
be.
there, still no cyan. What a mess.
What a mess. You just broke. Can you get some cyan already? What can we do with this? At this point, I enabled debug logs in the service so I could observe what is going on when my fake printer was being discovered and added. And I noticed these lines. Created permanent cups queue for God 192, 168, 5019. Loading saved printer options for this. Oh, look at that. You have little printer options right there. Failed reading file. This nice little one. Probably no options recorded yet. Okay, print queue. Let's see. PPD generation successful. Create a temporary file using this one right here. Editing this file. Okay, I don't understand what's important in here. Let's find out. I assume it tells me what's important in here.
Yeah, he will. The PPD is a big part.
Okay.
A lot of PPs going on here.
A lot of PPDs going on. Wait, what? It looks like the service fetches these attributes and then creates some sort of temporary file, a PPD, on which these attributes are possibly saved. If we search for PPD generation successful string that appears in the logs, we find ourselves in the create queue function where we can see how the attributes are passed to the PPD create PPD from IPP2 API in libppd. All right.
A lot of PPs going on, but basically what this function does is you advertise that you're a printer. The kernel is like, hey, not the kernel, cups browse D is like, hey, printer, what do you do? And you tell it what you do. That file format is a PPD file.
Okay. Let's see. So thank you for covering that because, I always struggle reading this type of C.
And the tabbing that they're doing is like, it just makes my brain bleed. Yeah. So
not only that, but it's also just like, you just need to know what this function does. I need to know what this layout is. You just need to know so much more when it comes to C because everything you're just like, I got to figure out what all of these things mean. And there's 1900 parameters being passed into this one function.
That function has too many parameters. Who the hell, what is that?
Can someone just create a struct already?
I was going to say, make a structure. What are you doing?
Anyways, so this is just all crazy. Finally, we get to libppd, where the PPD create PPD from IPP2 API is used to save one of those attacker-controlled text attributes to a file with a very specific line-oriented syntax without any sanitization whatsoever. Hewlett-Packard. F you. Yeah, oh, nice. I like how there's actually specific string looking up for Hewlett-Packard.
Yeah, it's like, hey, ignore that one. If you see a Hewlett-Packard, don't let it in. It's garbage.
Get that guy out. They're going to try to sell you some sort of subscription. All right. So this is obviously doing a whole bunch of string stuff, right? Manufacturer, model name, nickname, short nickname. Okay. Notice how many attributes are printed unescaped into the file. The printer make model is just one of them. So what the hell is a PPD file now? Note, these two API are also used in other parts of the overall cup system, not just discovery. I know if you know I don't know what WIM is. If you know
what I mean.
If you know what I mean. Damn, okay. If you know what I mean, baby. That must mean there's something else that reads these and does something with this.
Yep.
All right, PostScript printer description. Okay, we're starting to get juicy. I'm getting ready. PostScript printer description. Files are created by vendors to describe the entire set of features and capabilities available for the PostScript printers. A PPD also contains PostScript code, commands, used to invoke features for the print job. As such, PPDs functions and drivers for all PostScript printers by providing a unified interface for printers' capabilities and features. So a PPD file is a text file provided by the vendor that describes in a domain-specific language the printer capabilities to see to cups and instructs it how to use it properly. It looks something like this. It also apparently came with some code it could execute.
Yep, we'll get there. Yep. So basically, all you're doing there, you go up there and it says, "Hey, I'm a printer. I can do 10 pages per minute. I need more cyan, and I speak English." Right? Like that's kind of all it does here.
Okay, I'm currently out of cyan at all times.
I'm just perma. I don't have cyan. I can't. I don't know what to tell you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. And there are tons of different instructions that are supported and can be used to do all sorts of things. This is going to be one of those things where I feel like we just got done seeing this, where you can provide like a string to execute and it just like raw dogs it right out onto the system. I spent a few hours. I mean, didn't this just happen? Wasn't there just a bug that I think you even came on the stream and we talked about? I didn't mean to click that link. Where you just what was that?
I mean,
I feel like this is like one of the most number one. Just my big takeaway from all these security things is don't read commands from text files and just raw dog them onto your system.
Yeah, yeah. Like, stop using the system function. Like, ta-da! You've solved 30% of bugs.
I spent a few hours just reading the PPD specs, thank you MIT, and studying the cup specific extension in order to find something I could rely on to perform an attack. Then I found out about cups filter 2 directive. Cups filter 2, source type, destination type, cost program. This string keyword provides a conversion rule from a given source type to a printer's native format using the filter program if a printer supports the source type directly. The special filter program dash may be specified. The destination type is automatically created as needed and is passed to the filters and backend as the final content type value. A filter is any executable contained in the user cups filter path. Cups does.
So you're thinking
this.
like, you're like, oh man, if it's in that path, then it's not arbitrary code execution. Like, it has to be inside that path. So surely it's not that big of a deal. So keep going.
That was my first thought. Was like, oh man, that's crazy. Oh, it's in this path. Okay, that can't be a big deal. Right? You can't just specify any binary. See, that's what I thought. You could just do any binary you wanted, which will get executed when a print job is sent to the printer in order to perform some document conversion if the printer doesn't support the specific format. So given that we have constraints on which binary we can execute, we need to find a way to leverage one of the existing filters to run arbitrary commands. Oh no. And also bypass these checks here, which only takes space before a colon. The problematic child, Fumatic RIP. Another search revealed...
Real quick, I was talking to Simone about this, and I had the same issue. When I was reading some of the leaks before his blog post came out, I saw this Fumatic RIP thing, and I'm like, oh, that's like part of the exploit. That's like what Simone put in there to make this happen. Surely, because that name is so ridiculous, it sounds like something a hacker would make.
Yeah,
and
it's literally called Fumatic RIP.
Yeah, it's functionality within cups D. Continue, but it's baked. It's baked in. It's in there. It just comes with cups D for fun.
So someone at some point said, I'm going to commit Fumatic-RIP.
Mm-hmm.
Probably worked at the NSA. And then the reviewer said, that's a pretty good name.
Yeah, that's fine. Leave it there. And yeah, we just continue. It's interesting.
I mean, come on. I mean, they don't even have to try. At least, like, back in the day, the NSA had to try. Now they're just handing it to them. Look at
those dates, man. It's been an issue since 2011. This has been a known problem. Like, come on.
I wonder what would have been even better is to release a silent update that actually searches how often this actually happens and logs it out somewhere, and see if this is actually being exploited in the wild. Or if this is just
potentially,
or if this is just all, because that would actually give you like a much more real, understanding. Another search revealed pretty quickly that we could define, or it could be defined as necessary evil of the cups family. The Fumatic RIP filter. This executable has a long history of being leveraged for exploitation, starting from the first known, to me at least, 2011 one, and another 2011 one back in 2011. The filter accepted the Fumatic RIP command line. By the way, it's literally called Fumatic RIP. What is the chances? Directive in the PPD that would allow any command to be executed through it. Nice.
Like, why? Why has this ever existed? He kind of goes into it in a little bit, but it's just like,
I assume that means you can literally do
looks good to me. Like, that's good. So commit it.
Does that mean you can literally just do like curl something, pipe it into shell, and it just will allow that thing to happen? So you can just remote bring in code of any kind and then just call it a day.
Yep.
That's pretty neat. According to the records, this is the commit that fixed those CVEs. However, if you might have noticed that this package is different and it's called Fumatic Filters. When Fumatic Filters was integrated into the cup system, this fix was not ported to cups, as it is possible to verify by the PPD argument, initially removed as part of the fix and still present in the code today. And in fact, we can find mentions of the Fumatic RIP command line directive being leveraged for arbitrary command execution in more recent 2024 CVEs. So apparently Fumatic RIP was a known issue confirmed by the cups dev, but somehow it has not been fixed for decades. Damn. Why is there arbitrary code execution? That seems wild. Why is something that allows arbitrary commands in generally untrusted context not considered a security issue worth fixing? I'll tell you why. Because it's very hard to fix, according to the cups developers.
Yes, this paragraph kind of explains the issue.
Okay. It is very difficult to limit what can be provided in the Fumatic rip command line in the PPD file. Redacted. Okay. I assume that just means removed text. And
It's a first name or something.
Okay. Redacted and the rest of the. Oh, yes. Open Printing team have been talking about ways to limit what can be done through Fumatic without breaking existing drivers. We can certainly recommend that people not use Fumatic, but there are likely hundreds of older print models before 2010 that are only supported through Fumatic. You know, I'd say a really easy win is you don't allow printers from 2010 and 2024.
Yep. Yeah, this is like the traditional folly of backwards compatibility, right? So when you have a printer, when it advertises this packet, when it sends a PPD file, I guess a lot of printers depend on the Fumatic rip functionality to run the code that comes with the printer, right? So you install the driver, put it in your system, you install it, then Fumatic rip says, hey, can you run user bin HP printing daemon or whatever? And so if you remove Fumatic rip, you would essentially nuke all of the functionality of like most printers. So it has been an issue for a long time, but there is no reasonable way to fix it without like negating the functionality of a lot of hardware. So what do? They literally don't know what to do about it.
Yep. Dang. Well, that's crazy. And many of those hundreds of models really use this directive in creative ways, such as this. I mean, it is wild that I'm looking at a Perl script.
Mm-hmm.
And is that Go script?
I don't actually know what this line does. I saw so many percent signs that I skipped over it when I was
All I know is I have accidentally opened up GhostScript many of times. I don't know what GhostScript is. All I know is it does exist. And when I had a command that was get status as GS and then I removed it, I opened up GhostScript quite a few times. I don't know what it is, but it's been on every system that I know of forever, and I don't know what it does.
Yeah. I have no idea what this is either.
Yeah, you'll be haunted if you use it. That's all I know.
Ooh.
Yeah. I have no idea that this can happen every time you print something. And to be frank, it's quite scary. Yeah, I cannot believe how crazy. How is there not just like... How have people not been like, yo, you just gotta, as a printer, you need to understand PDF and a couple other things, and that's that. Or just like the universal converter, and you must all, like, I don't know, we have HTTP servers somehow figured that out.
Right. No, the printer industry is still in the 2000s, I guess. They can't figure it out.
It's just like, dog, the only way you can possibly print anything is via Perl. Okay, if you can't run a Perl script, I don't know how to print. Okay, buddy?
I can't handle it.
I have no idea that this could happen every time you print something, and to be frank, it's quite scary. They have to allow Fumatic rip command line to accept pretty much anything, including Perl, as you see. For many printers, we'll just stop working on Unix. Man,
the
dozens of printers that don't work anymore is just going to be a tragedy.
We're going to have tens of angry people.
They're gonna have to buy a printer that's only a decade old if they expect to be able to live in the new modern world.
And God forbid, not print on Unix. What are we gonna do?
Life's over. Remote command execution chain. So in theory, we should now be able to force the target machine to connect back to our malicious IP server, return an IPP attribute string that will inject controlled PPT directives to temporary files, wait for a print job to be sent to our fake printer for the PPT directive, and therefore command to be executed. Can you delete other printers and replace them? Is that the goal, that you can discover and and just create at least identically named printers so it like shows the same printer
I haven't
twice?
seen strong evidence for this. I haven't seen it done like in a video or anything, but I think what he said in the beginning was that you can admit that you are a printer that already exists and it will overwrite the properties of that printer.
Okay.
So if you know that you have like Office Printer 1, you can say that you're now Office Printer 1, and when they go to print on that, it'll be you, which is like
I'm the Office Printer. Shall we? This is the configuration payload for the IPP server. This is a YAML file that you will be able to use with the next BetterCap release and its new ZeroConf and IPP modules. Oh, this is beautiful. Look at all this YAMLing. Just don't mention Norwegians. You can see how returning a printer privacy policy URI attribute string. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Temp pwn. Okay, so there you go. Fumatic rip command line. There it is right there.
Yeah.
Set the printer privacy policy URI to google.com, close the PPT string with a double quote, and add a new line. Inject the Fumatic echo line with our command PPD. Inject cups2 filter application PDF VND cups blah, 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 line. Notice the spaces before and after the colon. no closing double quotes, directives, and instructs cups to execute this right here with our Fumatic command line when the print job is sent, and victory. In this video, you can see me on my attacker machine on the left using the first version of the exploit to attack my new laptop, a fully patched Ubuntu 2401 or 2404.1 LTS running cups browse 2.0.1. Finally achieved some command line execution.
Yep.
All right. So
looking in temp, there's no funky files in temp, nothing crazy there.
Just some Fumatic files.
I'm going to run some scripts real quick and make that print job happen.
Oh man, just handing out some PJs, huh?
Yep. Well, Jesus Christ. Couple of casual PJs.
Just some PJs, man.
Oh man. And then he cats that file. I'm blocking it. Oh shit, my fat head.
Yep. Look at that. Permission denied. Oh, it is
makes
sudo.
It as root, right?
Oh,
it creates
damn.
Yeah.
It did a read write only on as sudo. Crikey.
Yep.
Not as sudo.
That's it.
Everyone's going to roast me for saying the word sudo. Ooh, shut up.
Wait, why?
Well, because it's not user sudo.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
obviously,
dumbass.
That's sudo. Okay.
Oh man.
Sudo L. I know. I got so many L's. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so that's the whole exploit. So literally, it's advertise that you're a printer. When you advertise your capabilities as a printer, you say you need Fumatic rip, and then Fumatic rip allows you to run arbitrary commands on print jobs. Not great. It's not a 9.9 because you do need to submit a print job and have that printer try to print it, like you being the printer.
Yeah.
But it still is arbitrary command injection as root on Linux. Not good. Right.
Yeah. It's people. You can still get people. Let's see.
Right.
Let's see. You will maybe be thinking now, wow, that's a lot of stuff to read, code, RFCs, PDFs of forgotten standards. This research must have been so tiring. But in reality, this was a weekend worth of rabbit holes. This was the fun part. The actual work, the heavy, boring stuff started on September 5th. After confirming my findings, I decided to open security advisory on the Open Printing Cups Browse repository to do what to me was the right thing to do, responsible disclosure. I won't go into details of the initial conversation or the ones that followed. You are free to read them. If they will never open any of the threads, if they will never open any of the threads and you are willing to read the 50 plus pages of conversations or not, make your own opinion. While the research only took a couple of days, this part took 22, and this part was not fun. I will only say that to my personal experience, the responsible disclosure process is broken. That a lot is expected and taken for granted from security researchers by triagers that behave like you have to prove to be worth listening to, while in reality they barely care to process and understand what you are saying, only to realize you were right all along 3 weeks later, if at all. Is a part of this problem. I assume that this has only gotten worse due to the inundation of crappy LLM security issues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's the same thing as the mass GitHub issue problem, right? Where it's like you want to look like you contribute to open source, you want to have it on your resume, you make a GitHub issue for a misspelling in the README, right? There are not enough maintainers, there are not enough people that own projects, and when they're constantly inundated, either publicly or privately, like publicly on GitHub, privately at cert vents, with these potentially nothing burgers, it's hard to vet people quickly. So if you don't know the name, you're not going to pay attention to them, unfortunately, right? So when a new guy shows up with a big bug, it takes a lot more time for them to get attention, which sucks. It's not good that it's like that, right? And I think that's kind of where a lot of his frustration comes from.
I mean, in some sense, it's expected, right? Because none of us operate giving every person the exact same credibility as the next, right? Like
Sure.
you have people that consistently contribute, so you just are willing to listen to them. People that don't consistently contribute, so you're just less likely to listen to them.
Right.
Like if PJ came up to me and said, hey, you should do this, I am 10 times more likely to listen to him than just some random person, just because he has a proven track record. So
it's also extremely rare for somebody like this guy that no one has really heard of. He had a lot of followers on Twitter, actually, so I may be missing some background. I'm probably an idiot for saying that. But from a security standpoint, haven't heard a lot about him, and then suddenly he shows up with 4 0 days, right? Like that's just, the math doesn't math from somebody that's looking to figure out where to spend their resources more efficiently, right? In terms of who to pay attention to. So yeah.
Someone's saying right here, a PHPP, good old-fashioned PHPP. I get multiple exploit reports per week for my site. 100% of them are people using some automated scan tool looking for money, reporting non-issues. Yeah, it's the curse and the blessing of. Hi, ending with Allie. It's the curse and blessing of bounties, which bounties have created an unfortunate, like, corrupt incentive for people to do things. It's not, I mean, I wouldn't call it corrupt. It is a vulnerable perception in the sense that people now want to go as fast as they can to get money out of a situation. Yeah. Thus, you're going to get a ton of automated, constant, like, barrage of things. And this is obviously where a ton of the, I would assume at least, a ton of these LLM type reports. I think Daniel Latimer, the guy that runs Curl right now, talked about the I in intelligence, or the I in LLM stands for intelligence, which is that he's just been inundated with LLM security, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Be right back, building an LLM bounty hunter bot. So I feel bad. I don't even know how would you ever fix this problem to begin with. It looks like
there really is no good answer aside from like just modifying the vetting process, if there even is one, and then getting more people to look at these tickets. And that's a hard problem too, because you'd have the same issue on the back end where it's like people are just looking for clout as a maintainer. So
yeah. 2 days of research, 249 lines of text for the fully working exploit, 22 days of arguments, condescension, several gaslighting attempts. The things I've read these days, you have no idea. More or less subtle personal attacks, dozens of emails and messages, more than 100 pages of text in total. Hours and hours and hours and hours of fucking hours, not to mention somehow being judged by a big chunk of the InfoSec community with a tendency of talking and judging situations they simply don't know. That's kind of wild. You'd think, like, I mean, if someone could just hand you this video, your response would be like, oh, yeah, that seems bad.
I do want to say one thing about the video. The video is good. The only thing that I don't like about the video is he doesn't show the fact that you need to trigger a print job.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes.
I think he scripts it in the script, which again, it's not like malicious or anything. It's more just
trying to show you how easy it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this video on its own overstates the bug a little bit. But I agree with you, right? Like, give me the video where you show that you become a printer, you do a print job, and then I get code execution. If you show that to anybody, I'd be like, oh, that's bad. You know what I mean? It's not a 9.9, but it's still terrible. It's like a high 8, I think, according to Tenable.
Yeah, well, especially if you showed 2 printers with the exact same name. If you if you couldn't take over a printer, so it's like my personal printer, and there's 2 of them, and because that could be a really easy one, because someone would be like, oh, weird, there's 2 of them, and just click one and print, right? Like, not a lot of people
I saw on Twitter someone did this. They used his script, but they made a printer called print to PDF. Like, I do that all
that's a good
the
one.
time.
Yeah, that's
you know
a good
what I mean? Yeah.
Very easy for someone to be like, drop down print to PDF, and then boom, you accidentally just goof it up, right? He could have even shown in the video going to a PDF on Google Chrome, having it called print to PDF and doing it, and it just feels so natural, and then next thing you know, you get scuffed. It's kind of wild that people would be so mean over something that's obviously bad.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem is that it appears like a clout chase situation. Not that it is, but it looked that way initially because he tweeted about a 9.9 and then the bug wasn't a 9.9. Now, as he'll go into in this article, that wasn't actually his fault, right? That was a miscommunication between him and Red Hat. We'll get into that in a second.
Okay, yeah. And also, I mean, Red Hat, like, if there is a third-party service that vets the size of these bugs, you would assume that the devs would then go, okay, Red Hat has called this a 9.9. We will look into this, and maybe it's not that. But still, nonetheless, some third party has said this was a big number. Big number could be bad.
Right.
Let that sink in for a moment. What the actual fuck? I assume the A stands for actual.
I think you're right.
Where's the actual friends? And we're not talking about time spent on fixes while I was impatient and throwing a tantrum on Twitter. The actual fixes, or part of them, started being pushed much later. The vast majority of the time has been spent arguing whether or not these were issues worth considering. While I was trying to report that there's something bad that should be addressed ASAP, the devs were being dismissive and pushing their code also vulnerable for other functionalities instead of fixing, because I dared to criticize the design of their software. While at the same time, I was trying to reach out privately to de-escalate and assure whoever was getting offended that my intent was not adversarial. Hey, this is Evil Socket. I wanted to reach out personally to apologize about the chaos my reports might have been created and to make 100% clear that any criticism I moved is purely technical. As a 40-year-old dude who spent most of his adult life writing code, I know very well criticizing and attacking something is way easier than writing and creating things. And people like that, like you literally created the very foundations of the internet protocol will always have my utmost respect and gratitude. When I noticed blank on my laptop and I was like, WTF is this? And then got dragged into a rabbit hole out of concern and a bit of late afternoon boredom. Please feel free to reach out here if there's anything I can do to make this easier on you and your team. Something that I've personally taken is I just try not to insult things, generally speaking, as like a side note. Because I have personally found that when you insult something, people will just simply focus on the insult no matter how big the other thing is.
Yeah, I mean, we've proven this. Like, the human brain is designed to, like, act defensively by default. So the minute you come out and attack somebody, even if unintentional, like, they will focus all of their energy on that, right? And that's, like, the unfortunate part of security research. Your job is literally to tell somebody their baby is ugly. Like, that's what you do all day. And so you have to come up with a really tactful way of doing that to get people to listen to you. And I think, like he said, he got really excited, had a potential 9.9, may have come in too hot, and the chaos ensued from there, unfortunately.
And unfortunately told everyone that their twins were ugly, but it turns out it wasn't like that bad.
Right. They're a little ugly, like a high five, but not like, not a one. Oh,
yeah, I know. It's not like, man, coming out with cross eyes and all that. My second kid came out all cross-eyed, looked just like the Minister of Education off Idiocracy. It was very hilarious. Looked constantly angry and cross-eyed for like the first 2 months of his life.
I was going to ask if that's been resolved because that was laughing.
Yeah, that's very resolved. He's very cute kid now, but just ugly
awesome.
Baby. It was so funny. To the people that more or less directly questioned my integrity, accused me of spectacularization and of spreading FUD on my socials. I don't know this. Let's see. I don't do this for a living. I don't need CVEs to get a job or to prove how good my kung fu is, or any attention other than what my projects and research already provide. I don't play InfoSec influencer trademarked like many. To put it like Javier beautifully put it, my mission was to interrupt the triagers' focus until they reprioritize. When I saw that what I thought was pretty serious was being dismissed as an annoyance, I used the only platform I had, plus a pinch of drama as a tool, to have them fucking reprioritize. And it worked wonderfully. More fixes happened after 2 tweets than with all the arguing and talking. So why not? Don't hate me. Hate the system that forced me to do that in order to be taken seriously. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot to be interpreted here. I'm not sure that there is a correct or incorrect answer. I mean, he's right that his tweets got people to move. Was that the best way to do it? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot we don't know here. I haven't seen the initial reporting. I haven't seen the initial issues. Like, how mean was he? You know what I mean? It's just,
yeah.
I agree there is a problem where he needs people to pay attention to this because it is a serious issue, but was that done correctly? I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, really good takeaway here. Sometimes, no matter how big the thing is you're saying, if you say it wrong, people just can't hear you.
Yep, exactly.
And I think I assume that at least has to be some percentage of it. Maybe it's not a big percentage. Maybe he was 85% in the right. Still, something small like that can get you. All right, I got to go pee. You got to entertain people. I'll be right back. I just have to pee. I drink way too much. I drank too much.
Classic Prime drinking too much.
About the 9.9 CVSS. CVS, isn't that a store?
Yes.
All right, somebody also
accused... They sell cyan.
Oh, they do. They probably do. They probably sell cyan and yellow and magenta.
Mm-hmm.
Magenta's not a real color, right?
I don't think so.
Let's see. Somebody also accused, I assume me, of making things up, especially due to the 9.9 CVSS severity that I claimed in this tweet. Granted, I was very transparently said in the thread, I am really not familiar with CVSS scores, how they are assigned, and so on. But here's a screenshot from the Vince report of the initial CVSS scores, including the 9.9 being estimated by Red Hat Engineer. Also reviewed by another one.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what are you supposed to do?
Right. Exactly. Like he's not really a security researcher. He's doing research. He emails Red Hat and they're like, "Oh, you have a 9.9." So he tweets it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah. Well, what is this 8.6? Is this also like one of them?
so there are 4 bugs here that he reports, and one of them got a 9.9. So the actual bug that got a 9.9 was the command injection via Fumatic RIP in cups filters.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Crazy. As I said, I'm not an expert, and I don't think I think that the initial 9.9 was mostly due to the fact that the RCE is trivial to exploit and the package presence is so widespread. Impact-wise, I wouldn't classify it as a 9.9. But then again, what the hell do I know? Well, yeah,
Right.
I mean, that's fair. By the way, I guess it's a 9.9 if you're susceptible. I think that's the best way to put it. Like, if you have this, it's pretty bad because printf's PDF, I would fall for that. Hands down, I would fall for that.
The issue is that in the report, I don't know if he submitted it or they misinterpreted it, but he did say it was a zero interaction exploit, which would be a 9.9. When you downgrade that to actually require user interaction by doing a print job, it bumps it down to like a 9.1, which is still like a solid bug. You know what I mean? That's not nothing. It's a lot. It's just not like the Heartbleed of today, right?
But Heartbleed wasn't even a 9, right? Wasn't
Heartbleed was like a 7.5.
Yeah, I thought it was in the 7s.
Looking back is like crazy. So I put a link in the chat to Tenable's blog post about these bugs, and they have, I guess, like the proper, in quotes, CVE scores for these bugs. So like they're not 9.9s, so they're still fairly high, right? Like,
yeah.
And also don't forget, he discovered an entire class of bug in the HTTP parsing string function via the fuzzing he was doing. So like he didn't find nothing. You know what I mean? Like these are real bugs.
And there's probably other exploits that might come out of this also. That
very
just are
soon
simply,
because they weren't fuzzing cups browse D.
Yeah, classic, not fuzzing cups browse D. Wow. By the way, certs Vince either has a backdoor or an inside leak or has zero vetting on who they add to the disclosure, because there has been a leak of the exact markdown report that I only shared there, including the exploit.
Yeah.
This stuff is so crazy that it is a circus. What a circus. Like, honestly, what a circus.
Right.
Can I tell a little story?
Do it, man.
Netflix story. Are you ready for this one? When I was at Netflix.
Did you work there?
Yeah, by the way, worked there. When I was at Netflix, we launched globally, I think 2016, at Consumer Electronic, whatever it's called, that, you know, the big
CES.
show, CVS, CES, whatever it is, Computer Electronics Show.
Yes.
Anyways, during that, we launched globally. But for a year before that, we knew about it coming. Like, everybody did. Emails were going out, all that. Not a single leak happened. Sure. I still look back at that as like one of the coolest moments, that there's approximately 2,000 employees at Netflix and no one leaked it.
Wow.
Which I thought was really cool. Now at Netflix, you can barely sneeze without it being leaked. So it's like,
really,
times are changing. But back then, I always thought that was super, super cool. And so when I see
think
this
about like movie production companies and stuff, and like anyone that's doing work with like creative IP, and how many movies and shows are made so regularly, and how few leaks there are. So like it is possible to have leakless or at least leak-proof-ish organizations. I'm just shocked that when you're dealing with something as sensitive as potentially a bug in all of Linux, the organization couldn't keep its mouth shut, right? So it's like, what's going on there?
Mm-hmm. It's wild. When I initially wrote exploit.py, I only sent the UDP packet and created a rogue IPP server. Then, with time, I started adding features to it, especially zero-conf advertising, and it became a tool. So at some point, I decided to rewrite it in Go and integrate this new code in BetterCap. By the way, Go, great programming language, giving it the ability to transparently impersonate any service advertised via zero-conf, Bonjour, and AVI. On a LAN, and doing interesting things with the text records and specific service attributes like IPP. And I discovered interesting stuff in part 2 of this series. Date to be determined, since there's another disclosure process. We'll see how to use these new BetterCap modules, not yet released, to attack Apple Mac OS. For now,
Hack the planet, baby.
I hope you enjoyed part 1. Hack the planet.
Hack the planet.
Hack
man.
the planet. Wow. Okay.
So what are your thoughts? Was it as hype as you were expecting?
I think, well, so I kind of come at this from like only the Twitter angle. I heard and crept on that, you know, I must have received 1,000 messages being like, big Linux drop coming. here comes like end all of all Linux happening, 9.9, Heartbleed 7.5 or whatever it is. I'm like, dang, man, that's crazy. Like Heartbleed was a big deal at Netflix. So I can imagine that this next one on the Richter scale is going to like shake the world, and then for it not to be as big, I can see why some people are upset. The 9.9 feels a little like, I don't want to call it, I don't know how they determine these numbers and how the miscommunication happened, but it says to me that just the process is more broken than anything, that this could happen right here, that someone could review this bug and say, yep, 9.9, and if they had the full context and understood what was going on, that just seems like, no, that can't be a 9.9. Like, that can't be a 9.9. But
yeah, so I put the calculator in chat for you. The way that they make these scores is like, well, I was going to say very straightforward. That's straightforward in air quotes, right? They literally go to this calculator and they push all the buttons about the bug, and then the number comes out. And you can plug in the numbers that he gave, and it will produce a 9.9. Now, I think where it gets hairy is the ambiguity in these metrics, right? Like availability impact, user interaction, integrity impact, right? Like what qualifies as user interaction? Like, do they have to say their mother's maiden name backwards, or do they have to look at the camera? You know what I'm saying? Like how much interaction is there? How much availability happens? They have low and high, but what differentiates those two? And every organization that does CVSS scoring will have a different interpretation of these things, right? Some lean more conservative, some lean a little more, liberal, or like whatever you want to call it. And so as a result, you get kind of this wide variety where Heartbleed, one of the biggest bugs ever for a long time, only 7.5, and this 9.1. And that's where I think some of the lack of confidence in this process comes up, because these numbers are so up for interpretation.
Interesting. Is there not like a likelihood of being affected score? Because, this one is requiring printing from Linux, Unix, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that would inherently go, okay, there's really not that many people printing. So like maybe the severity score of it is a 9.9, like in the sense that it really requires virtually no effort to set up something and just sit waiting to pounce on the person. So it's like, it's very, very easy to set up and get running. But the impact rating is like a 0.1.
Sure. How many people are actively vulnerable to this?
Likely going to be affected. I mean,
if you look at it, like default installs of Ubuntu are vulnerable to this right now. But it's back to the interaction piece that makes it an actual vulnerability, right? Like if I were on your network with you right now and you had an Ubuntu desktop, I can make this happen.
But I still have to go in here, and I guess, the destination, save as PDF. So if you showed up first, like it's hard to see that. But that's like the first thing, save as PDF. I don't think I can, you can't zoom, unfortunately, I can only zoom in on the printing. I can't zoom in on this little button right here. And if I change the resolution, I'll have to like readjust the stream and all that. But nonetheless, it says save as PDF. So if you showed up first, I just simply wouldn't know.
Right. And I think back to your point about like the likelihood thing, what you'd have to capture that is there's no way to like objectively capture that, right? Because some organizations print more than others, right? So like if you work at like Dunder Mifflin Incorporated, right? Like you are most likely more exposed to this than me, who just destroyed my printer. But is that important to capture in CVSS? I don't think so. It's on the organization to kind of vet whether or not it matters for them.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, let's see. Hold on. Here's Eva. Eva was the one that discovered the ARC vulnerability, where you could just do arbitrary code execution of the JavaScripts on someone's ARC browser. Boost. Yeah. The thing that is standard. Let's see. The thing is standardizing that is hard. If you look at it that way, not many people used ARC, and I had a 10.0. Does that mean my vulnerability isn't a big deal?
Right.
Yeah, it's a big deal for those that have it.
Yeah, exactly. If you had a reach score for that bug, it would make it lower. But then people who use ARC would see it's only a 6 or whatever, and then not pay attention. You know what I mean? So it's a weird double-edged sword if you do it that way.
Yeah. Well, you think you'd probably have to do two numbers, 9.9 with a 0.1, right? Sure. It's like here's the two numbers together. All right. TLDR: all versions of Red Hat Enterprise Linux are affected. but are not vulnerable by the default configurations. Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
Well, I think the ultimate problem here is that influence has become a commodity, and that there's a lot of striving for it, and people trying to capture as many eyes as possible. And so, I mean, me talking right now as this is a problem. Don't worry, I am understanding the irony of the statements I am currently making, but I think that this also leads to the incentive that are you willing to do, or what is the roads or the amount you will take to get those eyes? And are you willing to be like, hey, this is actually, it's not a highly affected, but it is still 9.9. So if you are affected, it could be very bad. Yeah. You know, like that isn't stated, or the things that aren't coming out that are very good to help people realize that not all problems are, despite being a 10.0, you still have to use Arc browser. So it's like, you know, like that's
right.
You're greatly reducing. And not only do you have to use Arc browser, you also have to be able to have your user ID discoverable, which means that you have to do some sort of publishing or some sort of interaction with the service to get yourself out there.
9.9 with 6.8 vibes. It's a great way of summarizing it. How you would capture that in an official manner, I don't know, but that smells correct.
Yeah. I would have said a 6.9 vibes, but you know.
Ooh, something right there.
I know, unfortunately, it was just missing a little bit of cyan.
It was like 6 inches just far away. You know?
Just a quick 6 inches off. That's it.
Oh man.
Let's see. Hold on. Isn't that all hypocritical in your case? That's why I literally
covered that.
I literally covered the irony of me stating how this could be bad. What? That's weird. Anyways.
Yep.
What can you do? Well, I'm glad that we went over this because it is shockingly a huge, giant, little no deal at all.
Wait,
It's a huge, giant, little no deal.
Too many double negatives in there. It's
like massive that the fact that this can exist and how easy you could easily exploit somebody, but it's also printing, and that's like a tiny thing. But the save as PDF one does make it bigger.
Right. And I do that all the time. Not on Unix because I'm an adult. But
so imagine you had 2 save as PDFs.
Right.
Like how would
you have one from Microsoft and you have one from Adobe. Like what if you had a third? I mean, you just you randomly choose, because I do, which one you use.
Yeah. So it could be a lot larger than you realize.
Yeah. Yep, and that's why it's up to security analysts and security people at companies to like have the background knowledge to make that decision based on what your organization does, right? Because not everyone is the same.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining. This one
thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. I love talking about this stuff. These things are a lot of fun. Well, fun for me because I don't have to deal with it, but for people that have to patch, sorry.
Yeah. Also, probably not fun for Evil Socket. It's Evil Socket, right? That got the what appeared to be 50 to 100 pages of communications. That does not sound very nice.
Yeah. Be nice to him. Like, a lot of the stuff he got excited about, I get that. I get excited too. A lot of the stuff he got miscommunicated to by either Red Hat or otherwise. So like, give the guy a break. He's doing good research. He found 4 0 days. Like it's a big deal. It's good work.
Yeah. You know, maybe that's the big takeaway. Is that Red Hat needs to
be nice?
No, Red Hat needs to fix their shit. Okay, that's the real takeaway here.
True.
We need, and we also may need a vibes check. From here on out, we need to have a 9.9 with a 6.8 vibes.
Yeah, what's the vibes rating on this one? Like,
what do you feel? What are you vibing on right now?
Looks like 9.9, smells like a 2. You know?
Yeah. Feels good. All right, hey.
Cool.
Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I am Low Level TV on Twitch and Low Level on YouTube. I'm working on a bit of a rebrand right now. Prime and I threw the best party at TwitchCon, and I realized that saying Low Level Learning over and over and over again twisted my tongue. So I'm working on a rebrand. But yeah, I'm on Twitter and YouTube and Twitch and all that good stuff. So
yeah, pretty good times.
Awesome. Thanks for having me on, bud. Appreciate it.
Genuinely, we did throw such a good party that directly afterwards, someone came up to me after the party and suggested a sponsorship for next year's.
Wow.
I know.
Let's do that.
To leave a party and get sponsorships for that said party. That's crazy, by the way. That's like,
you have to do it.
That's crazy. All right.
Yeah.
The name is the Low Level Learning. His name's Ed. He has an old man's name.
I do. I have a boomer ass name. Okay, goodbye.
Boomer ass. Bye.